come to be. And so a dramaturg will work with a playwright as a play is being developed in order to understand like what the structure of the piece is. And then the other element of dramaturgy is understanding the context in which the play was written. So any production that you've seen in like a large theater has a dramaturg working with the playwright and the director to understand, like in the case of a new play, like how the piece comes together and creates the whole for itself structurally. And then for a play that's already written, like a Shakespeare play will have a dramaturg to discuss what was happening in Shakespeare's life when that play was written and what was happening in like the time and the place that the play was being set. So this is work that really excites me, as like together we all get to contextualize this piece of art before we have the awesome creative opportunity to read it together. And in the course of the case of this play, I think it's an amazing story because it combines a lot of the elements that need to come together for theater to be made successfully in America. And it is tenuous for that to happen, as I think a lot of you know and can imagine. But all of those forces came together for this piece. And it is fascinating and like a little scary to me to imagine what it might have been like if just one of these pieces of the puzzle hadn't been able to fit together. So the first one is the artists, the generators of the materials. And so in that case, we start with Tony Kushner, who was born in Louisiana to musician parents, and then went to Columbia and was living in New York as an undergrad there, and then went to NYU for directing for his master's degree. And that's where he in the New York theater is really like the theatrical world that he's coming out of, and the people that he's meeting are through this directing program at NYU. And so Kushner he wrote a play called A Bright Room Called Day, and that was running like up in New York at like a tiny like 22-seat theater in Chelsea. So Kushner is like our first kind of our main artists here. And then the other artist that I think is really important to like the very beginning of this story is Oskar Eustis. So he's currently the artistic director of the Public Theater. But when Bright Room Called Day was running, he was in San Francisco at the Eureka Theater, which is eventually where Angels premiered. So the story goes that Oskar and Tony Taccone, who together co-directed the first production, came to New York together to see a show at the Public Theater, and they were late and they had no late seating at the Public. So they needed to figure out something else to do with their time, and they were pretty pissed. And so they went to Chelsea to see this production of Bright Room Called Day because they had an 8:30 curtain. So they went to see that show, and it has the Internationale, what the communists sing. I don't know this song, but it's like the national anthem for communism. So that was, can you help them? Can you fump?
Socialism.
Yes, the Internationale is the it's the Esperanto of socialism. Okay, it's meant to be the sort of the overarching theme song.
Okay. Thank you, Em. So I haven't read Bright Room Called Day, but that's in the play. And then, Tony Kushner is in the audience watching the performance with everybody else. And then somebody from the audience starts singing along to the Internationale in the audience. And that was Oskar Eustis. And he felt like he was, connecting like with a really important artist to him. And so he followed up like on that moment after he gets back to San Francisco. So of course, all of this is happening in the midst of this AIDS crisis in America. And there's a play called The Normal Heart that was written by Larry Kramer. And that was like one of the first pieces of art and pieces of theater in America to respond to the AIDS crisis. And so the Eureka Theater was this like scrappy, like lefty theater in San Francisco, and they really wanted to be able to do this play to respond to it. And the rights to it went to Berkeley Rep. So they needed to come up with another plan. And so they commissioned Tony Kushner to write a play about the AIDS crisis. And that became Angels in America. So A Bright Room Called Day was super long. It was like over 3 hours long. And Oscar Eustis was like, we got to have a shorter play than this. He felt like it could have been cut. So for the commission for the next play, he put in writing in the commission that it had to be under 2 hours long. And then Tony Kushner loves musicals, and he really wanted there to be songs in the play. So he had them put in the contract, in the commission, that it would have songs. So now you have this commission that he like signed, I guess, that says that the play that will become both plays of Angels in America needs to be under 2 hours and have songs. And if you've read it, you know that now it's two plays that are both 3.5 hours long, and there are no songs. So I was talking to a friend the other day who had talked to Oscar Eustis about this, and he was talking about Tony Kushner's courage to blow through deadlines and ignore deadlines that had been set for them. And in this case, language in the commission. And I loved that framing of it. There's something kind of beautiful about this creative commitment to adjusting to the piece that you're creating, you know, as you're doing your own dramaturgy and figuring out what it's becoming. And Kushner came to Oscar Eustis and he said, I can't get these people to change fast enough. And he realized that it was going to need to be two plays, that Angels in America was going to be a bigger thing than he thought. I didn't tell the story about the title. Kushner had this dream in 1985, which was just after the first person that he knew to die of AIDS had occurred. So he had this dream with an angel crashing through the ceiling in his dream. And he woke up and he wrote a poem and he titled it Angels in America. And he says, I'm not a poet and nobody's ever gonna see this poem, but he had his title right there and was able to draw from that as he's like working on this piece. So he knew like from the commission that it was gonna be in response to the AIDS epidemic. And then he knew that he wanted to write a piece featuring a lot of gay male characters. And and then he had this title, Angels in America. And he knew that he wanted Roy Cohn to be a part of it too. And there's a great quote in this book about like Kushner working through that part of it, this idea that Roy Cohn, this closeted gay Jewish man, was going to be a character in the play that Tony Kushner was going to like consider and work into the piece. And then in addition to that, he wanted there to be Mormons. He was thinking about, you know, the essential American angel and like this like most American of religions. And that's how these Mormons wind up in the play. So these are all the kind of like creative pieces that are swirling around. And he put together this first play, Millennium Approaches, and the Eureka Theater realized that they weren't going to be able to stage it in the amount of time that they had left. As I said, he was blowing past deadlines, and the Eureka in San Francisco, meanwhile, had sold subscriptions for the upcoming season based on the world premiere of Angels in America, and they didn't have the play ready to go. So, you know, you have these different pieces that I mentioned of the American theater. The first is the artists who, you know, really find each other in this moment in this theater in Chelsea. And then the next is the institutions that are able to throw their institutional weight behind art getting made. And so the case of the Eureka is really fascinating because, as I said, they're this scrappy little theater in San Francisco with pretty limited resources, and yet they have something here with this play. So they tell their subscribers that they're not going to be able to stage this because it's too much. And then they lost half the subscription base. And then some of the artistic leadership started to walk. So the next year, Tony Tacone, who co-directed the production, he went to a different theater. And then the year after that, Oscar Eustis left. So to me, it underscores like how difficult it is to keep artists in the same place, like in the same institution. Like there's always a lot going on in the theater and in these different institutions. And in this case, the Eureka was able to do so much for the production and for the development of the play. And we see what its limitations were. So, and in the meantime, Kushner still has more work to do, right? He knows it's going to be 2 plays. They've only got the first draft of Millennium Approaches. So then we bring in now like a third element of making theater in America, which is important for me because I run an arts organization focused on retreats and residencies. Here at the Barn, artists come usually from New York, but from all over the country to stay here at my house, and they work in the Barn. And I believe that approach to making art in America and anywhere is like really vital, that we need to leave these urban centers of development in order to have creative space as artists to be able to make work. So that's been a big focus of my own practice up here and my own like producing. And Kushner had that opportunity for the writing of Perestroika. And so I think that's why it's one of my favorite stories. One of the board members at the Eureka had like a house on the Russian River. And so Kushner drove out to this house and he wrote 700 pages of Perestroika in 11 days in this board member's house. And he said it was like the red shoes, like he couldn't stop writing. It was totally obsessive. He would go to sleep for like 2 or 3 minutes and wake up and go and go and go. And he said a lot of his favorite stuff and the best stuff is in that first draft, which was like a phone book. And then I just read this story where so then he's just like, all right, I guess I'm just gonna leave. He's got the whole play. And he said he was driving, like delirious, shaking from exhaustion with this, and he wrote it by hand. So he's got a 700-page manuscript sitting in the seat next to him in the car. And he said, like, if I go into the Pacific Ocean, nobody's gonna know this happened. I've gotta be really careful. And then the songs that came up on the radio were his mother's practice song, and then his father's practice song, and then I don't remember the song, a song with angels in it, and then it was like American Pie, songs with American in it. So it was clearly faded. And so then he gets back and they said it's like Moses coming down from Sinai. He's got this manuscript and they're celebrating and they're like, we're gonna read this play the next day. And they start at 10 o'clock the next day and it's 6:30 in the evening and it's still not done. So it took 2 days just to read Perestroika. Okay, so now we have 2 drafts of the play, but now we've got to stage it. And then, the one piece I didn't mention there, in addition to these 3, the artists and the institutions and being able to retreat, right, to get away, is the government in this case. When they commissioned the play, the Eureka Theater got a grant from the NEA for Angels in America. It was a $50,000 grant, $40,000 for production, $10,000 to the playwright. So Kushner got a check for like $3,000 or $5,000 or something. And he speaks about how moving it was to him as a patriot to see the seal of the federal government on this check, which was more money than he'd ever made before. And, thinking of the Works Project Administration and I was really moved by that too, like what it means to have your country tell you, like, we believe in you enough to pay you to go and make this piece. And so that sort of 4th piece, I think, is really important, that some of the funding for this piece, a substantial amount like that made it possible, came from the NEA, from the federal government. So with these scripts, now we're in a place to be able to bring the play into production. And that's what happened in San Francisco in 1991, which is when Millennium Approaches premiered. And so that was that production was directed by Tony Taccone and Oscar Eustis, who were the same guys that went to see Bright Room Called Day in, 88. In New York, 89 maybe. And so then they just did a reading of Perestroika after that because that play wasn't staged yet. And that was essentially the end of the Eureka Theater. They weren't able to keep it all together after that. The challenge of mounting a play with just like with that much going on was too much for this organization with its limited resources, especially after its artistic leadership had moved on. So it got messy after that. Like just the the board at the Eureka is who's in charge, and they're trying to hold on to this play, and they want to be able to produce part two. And we get a sense of like, just like how different institutions fit into the life of a piece of art, of a play in America, as its impact expands, right? I think the Eureka Theater was the right play for the right place for this moment in this play's life, but the play is so ambitious, you know? It is sweeping in its scope and its approach. And so the next production was at the Mark Taper Forum in LA, which was the theater that Oscar Eustis had been like headhunted to go in and work at. So that was underway. And then at the same time, the National Theatre in London got a hold of the play, and then they mounted a production just of Millennium Approaches. And then eventually Perestroika got staged, and they did the world premiere of both of those plays together in LA at the Taper. So now there are like different productions going up on both sides of the Atlantic, and we're like aiming for a Broadway production at this point. And so that's what happened. Angels premiered, I think it premiered on Broadway in like 92 or 93. Let me just double check, y'all. Yeah, 93, I think, is once it like arrives on Broadway. And I just read these wonderful stories. So like everybody was going out to LA from New York to try to like plan for what it would look like in New York. And there was talk about it going to the public, but the commercial theater was ready to stage this play in a Broadway house. And that's exactly what happened. So they brought up they staged the first play, Millennium Approaches, and it won the Pulitzer and it won the Tony. And then I think 6 months to a year after that, Perestroika went up also on Broadway. So after that, like there was a pretty early Chicago production directed by Michael Mayer did the tour of the show after that. And then there was a Chicago production, and then productions like all over the country after that. And I just read this great quote from David Cromer, who was a Chicago director who then did a lot of work in New York. And he was saying how one of the reasons he feels like the play has had the impact it's had is because there isn't a definitive production of the play. In the Eureka Theater, it was like, you know, the poor theater version of the play. They had an actor, they had a shower curtain in front of the stage. So they had one actor on one side and one on the other side, and they would move the shower curtain across the stage slowly while they changed the scene behind it. And then when they got to the end, it was a new scene, and that was it. And then, you know, the Broadway production, like by comparison, was a lot more expensive and looked and felt really different. And then this production that Cromer was talking about in Chicago was like very much like a poor theater, like stripped down version. And then I'm thinking of more recent productions like Toneel Group Theater, which is run by Ivo Van Hove, who's like a really hot New York director in New York right now. He had a pretty famous production and often uses a lot of like video and projection design in his work. And then, you know, you have this national tour that also did not look like the Broadway production. That was a less expensive production because it was touring to different houses in different spaces all across the country, usually spaces that were presenting musicals. But in this case, I mean, that was pretty rare. Like they're bringing a new American play all around the country. And sometimes there were protests. Like in Charlotte, there was like a famous like protest and then a counter protest as people were responding to this work. So I think it speaks to like the ambition, the scope, the reach of the piece. And also, you know, like what it means for a piece to be theatrical, to me, means that it can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. And that's exactly what we see in the history of Angels in America. So that in order for it to be created, you needed all these pieces, like the artistry of Tony Kushner and the dramaturgy of Oscar Eustis and the institutional support of these regional theaters and the financial support of the American government. And then once the play goes up, we see all of these different ways that this incredibly ambitious piece of work can be realized. And that continues to this day. So we have the, you know, HBO Mike Nichols version with these like movie stars in it. And then most recently, this second National Theater production that then also transferred to Broadway. So you have this like lasting impact of this play that, I mean, I think is connected to like the ambition of it. I think it would be harder. I think if there had been a definitive production that was like, whoa, that Angels in America looks like this, and it sounds like this, and like it is realized as this thing in the theater, it's interesting to think about like if it would have been more difficult, or if the play wouldn't have had the sweeping impact that it had. But David Cromer compared it to The Cherry Orchard, this classic Chekhov play, in that it's too much, it's too big, it's too unwieldy, it's impossible to climb to the mountaintop and to do it like right, you know, which means that there's a million ways to do it right, you know? So I think that's what we see. I feel like that's one of the reasons we're able to come to the play together tonight, that you can make this successful in so many ways and in so many different moments. And that's the deal with a classic, right? So, all right.
So thank you. Andrew, thank you. And now we're gonna all come together and make our own production of Angels in America. So thank you, Andrew, a couple of notes for the people who are the readers and for the people who are the characters, which is to please unmute yourself before the scene that you are in. Okay, number one. And Andrew, when you get a chance, would you please put in the chat, because it will only go to the host, it'll go to Steve Portnoy, and then he'll be able to get it to everybody, the name of the book that you were referencing and the author. Thank you. Okay, so our readers for this week are, Andrew is reading Pryor, Steve Saturn is reading Roy Cohn, Judith Rosen is reading Joe Pitt, Barry Frimkes is reading Harper Pitt, Carol Sunahara is reading Mr. Lies. The Rabbi will be read by our rabbis, and Leland Heller will be the voice, and Martin Block will be Lewis. Now, for all of these people, I will just give a one-line tiny introduction to the notion of who the characters are before they first appear. So as our first reader will be Rabbi Benioff, the part that she is reading is Rabbi Isidore Chemowitz, who is an Orthodox Jewish rabbi, traditionally played by a woman. So Tony Kirshner starts off busting a gender notion of who an Orthodox rabbi would be by having a woman read the part. And it is just the beginning of the gender busting that we will be doing throughout this entire production, for want of a better term, that we will be doing over the next month. Rabbi Julie.
Hello and good morning. I am Rabbi Isidore Chemowitz of the Bronx, home for the aged Jews. We are here this morning to pay respects at the passing of Sarah Ironson, devoted wife of Benjamin Ironson, also deceased, loving and caring mother of her sons, Morris, Abraham, and Samuel, and her daughters, Esther and Rachel, beloved grandmother of Max, Mark, Louis, Lisa, Maria, Leslie, Angela, Doris, Luke, Eric. Eric? This is a Jewish name? Eric. A large and loving family. We assemble that we may mourn collectively this good and righteous woman. This woman. I did not know this woman. I cannot accurately describe her attributes, nor do justice to her dimensions. She was, well, in the Bronx home for the aged Hebrews are many like this, the old, and to many I speak, but not to be frank with this one. She preferred silence, so I do not know her, and yet I know her. She was... Not a person, but a whole kind of person. The ones who crossed the ocean, who brought with us to America the villages of Russia and Lithuania, and how we struggled and how we fought for the family, for the Jewish home, so that you would not grow up here in this strange place, in the melting pot where nothing melted. Descendants of this immigrant woman, you do not grow up in America. You and your children and their children with the Goisha names, you do not live in America. No such place exists. Your clay is the clay of some Litvak shtetl, your air, the air of the steppes, because she carried the old world on her back across the ocean in the boat, and she put it down on Grand Concourse Avenue or in Flatbush, and she worked that earth into your bones, and you pass it into your children. This ancient culture and home. You can never make that crossing that she made, for such great voyages in this world do not any more exist. But every day of your lives, the miles that voyage between that place and this one you cross, every day, you understand me? In you that journey is. So, she was the last of the Mohicans, this one was. Pretty soon, all the old will be dead.
Thank you. Scene 2 features Roy Cohn, described by Andrew already, and Joseph Porter Pitt, who at the time of this conversation is the chief clerk for Justice Theodore Wilson of the Federal Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit in the Bronx. This conversation occurs on the same day as Rabbi Chimowitz has just given the cheshbet for Sarah Ironson. Roy is at an impressive desk, bare except for a very elaborate phone system, rows and rows of flashing buttons which bleep and beep and whistle incessantly, making chaotic music underneath Roy's conversations. Joe is sitting, waiting. Roy conducts business with great energy, impatience, and sexual abandon, gesticulating, shouting, cajoling, crooning, playing the phone, receiver, and hold button with virtuosity and touching the buttons with love. Roy.
Hold. Joe, I wish I was an octopus, a fucking octopus. 8 loving arms and all those suckers. You know what I mean?
No,
You want lunch?
no, that's okay, really. I just want to.
Aileen, Roy Cohn. Now, what kind of greeting is... I thought we were friends, eh? Hey, look, Mrs. Sofa, you don't have to get... You're upset. You're yelling. You'll aggravate your condition. You shouldn't yell. You'll pop little blood vessels in your face if you yell. No, that was a joke, Mrs. Sofa. I was joking. I already apologized 16 times for that, Mrs. Sofa. You... This'll take a minute. Eat already. What is this tasty sandwich here? Is it, it's liver or something? Here.
He pitches the sandwich to Joe, who catches it and returns it to the platter.
Okay, no, I already told you it wasn't a vacation. It was business, Mrs. Sofer. I have clients in Haiti, Mrs. Sofer. Listen, Aileen, you think I'm the only goddamn lawyer in history ever missed a court date? Don't make such a big fucking... Hold. You hag.
If this is a bad time,
Bad time? This is a good time. Button. Baby doll. Get me... Oh, fuck, wait. Hello, yeah. Sorry to keep you holding. Judge Hollins, Oh, Mrs. Hollins. Sorry, dear. Deep voice you got. Your visit? She sounds like a truck driver, and he sounds like Kate Smith. Very confusing. Nixon appointed him. All the geeks are Nixon appointees. Yeah, right, good. So how many tickets, dear? 7. For what? Cats? 42nd Street? What? No, you wouldn't like Lacage. Trust me, I know. Oh, for God's sake. Hold. Baby doll, 7 for cats or something. Anything hard to get. I don't give a fuck what, and neither will they. You see Lacage?
No,
Fabulous. Best thing on Broadway, maybe ever. But, who? Oh, Jesus H. Christ. Harry. No, Harry. Judge John Francis Grimes. Manhattan Family Court. Do I have to do every goddamn thing myself? Touch the bastard, Harry. And don't call me on this line again. I told you not to.
Roy, should I wait outside or...
Oh, sit. Harry, you hold. I pay you to hold. Fuck you, Harry, you jerk. Oh, wit dick brain. I see the universe, Joe, as a kind of sandstorm in outer space with winds of mega hurricane velocity, but instead of grains of sand, it's shards and splinters of glass. You ever feel that way? Ever had those days?
I'm not sure
So, how's life in appeals? How's the judge?
Oh, he sends his best.
He's a good man, loyal. Not the brightest man on the bench, but he has manners and a nice head of silver hair.
He gives me a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, and like writing his decisions and signing his name.
Well,
He's a nice guy, and you cover admirably.
well, thanks, Roy.
Yeah, who's this? Well, who the fuck are you? Oh, Harry, 87 grand. Something like that. Fuck him, eat me. New Jersey, chain of porno film stores in, Weehawken. That's, Harry, that's the beauty of the law. So, baby doll, what? Cats? Bah. Cats? It's about cats, singing cats. You'll love it. 8 o'clock. The theater's always at 8. Fucking tourists. Live a little, Joe. Eat something, for Christ's sake.
Oh, Roy, could you...
What? Hold a minute. Mrs. Sofa, Mrs. God fucking damn
Roy,
it.
I'd really appreciate it if you...
Where's... Well, she was here a minute ago. Baby doll, see if... Ay. Jesus, fuck this goddamn
I really
thing.
wish you wouldn't...
Baby doll, ring the post. Get me Susie. See if... Christ!
Roy,
Hold. What?
could you please not take the Lord's name in vain? I'm sorry, but please, at least while I'm...
Sorry, fuck. Only in America. Baby doll, tell them all to fuck off. Tell them I died. You handle Mrs. Sofer. Tell her it's on the way. Tell her I'm stooping the judge. I'll call her back. I will call her. I know how much I borrowed. She's got 400 times that stuffed up her. Yeah, tell her I said that. So, Joe.
I'm sorry, Roy, I just...
No. Principles count. I respect principles. I'm not religious, but I like God, and God likes me. Baptist? Catholic? Mormon. Delectable. Absolutely. Only in America. So, Joe, what do you think?
It's... well,
Crazy life.
chaotic.
Well, but God bless chaos, right? Mormons. I knew Mormons in Nevada.
Utah, mostly.
No, these Mormons were in Vegas. So, how'd you like to go to Washington and work for the Justice Department?
Sorry?
Joe, how do you like to go to Washington and work for the Justice Department? All I got to do is pick up the phone, talk to Ed, and you're in.
In... what exactly?
Associate assistant, something big. Internal affairs, heart of the woods, something nice with clout.
Ed...
Ed Meese, the Attorney General.
Oh,
I just have to pick up the phone.
well, I have to think.
Of course. It's a great time to be in Washington, Joe.
Roy, it's incredibly exciting.
And it would mean something to me. You understand?
I can't say how much I appreciate this, Roy. I'm sort of, well, stunned. I mean, Oh, thanks, Roy, but I have to give it some thought. I have to ask my wife.
Your wife, of course.
But I really appreciate that.
Yeah, of course, of course. Talk to your wife.
Scene 3, later that day. Our characters in this scene are Harper Amity Pitt, who is Joe's wife, who we just met. She may have a problem or two with both Valium as well as perhaps a few mental illness issues. We also have in this scene a member of the International Order of Travel Agents, Mr. Lies, who will be read by Carol Sunahara. Scene 3.
People who are lonely, people left alone, sit talking nonsense to the air, imagining beautiful systems dying, old fixed orders spiraling apart. When you look at the ozone layer from outside, from a spaceship, it looks like a pale blue halo, a gentle shimmering aureole encircling the atmosphere, encircling the Earth. 30 miles above our heads, a thin layer of 3 atom oxygen molecules, product of photosynthesis, which explains the fussy vegetable preference for visible light, its rejection of darker rays and emanations. Danger from without. It's a kind of gift from God, the crowning touch to the creation of the world. Guardian angels, hands linked, make a spherical net, a blue-green nesting orb, a shell of safety for life itself. But everywhere things are collapsing, lies surfacing, systems of defense giving way. This is why, Joe, this is why I shouldn't be left alone. I'd like to go traveling, leave you behind to worry. I'll send postcards with strange stamps and tantalizing messages on the back. Later, maybe, never more. Oh, you startled me.
No, Carol? Barry, that's your line.
No, I didn't hear Carol.
Cash, check, credit card.
I remember you. You're from Salt Lake. You sold us the plane tickets when we flew here. What are you doing in Brooklyn?
You said you wanted to travel.
And here you are. How thoughtful.
Mr. Lies of the International Order of Travel Agents. We mobilize the globe. We set people adrift. We stir the populace and send nomads eddying across the planet. We are adepts of motion, acolytes of the flux. Cash, check, or credit card. Name your destination.
Antarctica, maybe. I want to see the hole in the ozone. I heard on the radio.
I can arrange a guided tour. Now?
Soon. Maybe soon. I'm not safe here, you see. Things aren't right with me. Weird stuff happens.
Like?
Well, like you, for instance. Just appearing. Or last week, well, never mind. People are like planets. You need a thick skin. Things get to me. Joe stays away and now, well, look. My dreams are talking back to me.
It's the price of rootlessness, motion sickness. The only cure? To keep moving.
I'm undecided. I feel that something's going to give. It's 1985. 15 years till the 3rd millennium. Maybe Christ will come again. Maybe seeds will be planted. Maybe there'll be harvest then. Maybe early figs to eat. Maybe new life. Maybe fresh blood. maybe companionship and love and protection, safety from what's outside. Maybe the door will hold, or maybe the troubles will come and the end will come and the sky will collapse and there will be terrible rains and showers of poison light. Or maybe my life is really fine. Maybe Joe loves me and I'm only crazy thinking otherwise, or maybe not. Maybe it's even worse than I know. Maybe I want to know. Maybe I don't. The suspense, Mr. Lies, it's killing me.
I suggest a vacation.
That was the elevator. Oh God, I should fix myself up. You have to go. You shouldn't be here. You aren't even real.
Call me when you decide.
No.
Buddy? Buddy? Sorry, I'm late. I was just out walking. Are you mad?
I got a little anxious.
Buddy kid? Nothing to get anxious about. So, how'd you like to move to Washington?
Scene 4 is also on the same day. Lewis and Pryor are outside of the funeral home. Lewis is Sarah Ironson's grandson. Lewis is also a word processor working for the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. Pryor Walter is his lover, Lewis's boyfriend, who occasionally works as a club designer or a caterer, but otherwise he lives with great panache off of a very small trust fund. They are outside, both dressed in funeral finery, talking. They are just about the service is over and Lewis is about to leave for the cemetery. Scene 4. Martin, okay.
Martin, you need to unmute yourself, please.
Martin, unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay, you're in scene 4, is that right?
Yes.
It starts with Joe.
No, it starts with Lewis saying, my grandmother actually saw Emma Goldman speak.
I'm sorry, I'm looking in the wrong place. Hold on, I'm sorry.
It's okay. You're actually getting to it's at the end of, that's why scene 4 is Lewis.
No, I was looking in the wrong act.
Page 25.
Page 25
Okay.
at the bottom.
My grandmother actually saw Emma Goldman speak in Yiddish, but all Grandma could remember was that she spoke well and wore a hat. What a weird service, that rabbi.
Definite find. Get his number when you go to the graveyard. I want him to bury me.
Better head out there. Everyone gets to put dirt on the coffin once it's lowered in.
Ooh, cemetery fun. Don't want to miss that.
It's an old Jewish custom to express love. Here, Grandma, have a shovelful. Latecomers run the risk of finding the grave completely filled. She was pretty crazy. She was up there in that home for 10 years, talking to herself. I never visited. She looked too much like my mother.
Poor Lewis. I'm sorry your grandma's dead.
Tiny little coffin, huh? Sorry, I didn't introduce you to. I always get so closety at these family things.
Butch. You get Butch. Hi, cousin Doris. You don't remember me? I'm Lou, Rachel's boy. Lou, not Lewis. Because if you say Lewis, they'll hear the sibilant S.
I don't have a...
I don't blame you hiding bloodlines. Jewish curses are the worst. I personally would dissolve if anyone ever looked me in the eye and said, "Feh." Wasps don't say "feh." Oh, and by the way, darling, cousin Doris is a dyke.
No. Really?
You don't notice anything. If I hadn't spent the last 4 years filleting you, I'd swear you were straight.
You're in a pissy mood. Cat still missing?
Not a fur ball in sight.
It is?
Ball. Yeah, I warned you, Lewis. Names are important. Call an animal Little Sheba and you can't expect it to stick around. Besides, it's a dog's name.
I wanted a dog in the first place, not a cat. He sprayed my books.
He was a female cat.
Cats are stupid, high-strung predators. Babylonians sealed them up in bricks. Dogs have brains.
Cats have intuition.
A sharp dog is as smart as a really dull 2-year-old child.
Cats know when something's wrong.
Only if you stop feeding them.
They know. That's why Sheba left, because she knew.
Knew what?
I did my best Shirley Booth this morning. Floppy slippers, house coat, curlers, can of little Friskies. Come back, little Sheba, come back. To no avail. Le chat, elle ne reviendra jamais, jamais.
He removes his jacket, rolls up his sleeve, shows Lewis a dark purple spot on the underside of his arm near the shoulder.
See?
That's just a burst blood vessel.
Not according to the best medical authorities.
What? Tell me.
KS, baby. Lesion number 1. Look it. The wine dark kiss of the angel of death.
Oh, please.
I'm a legionnaire. The foreign legion. The American legion. Legionnaire's disease.
Stop.
My troubles are legion.
Will you stop?
Don't you think I'm handling this well? I'm gonna die.
Bullshit.
Let go of my arm.
No.
Let go.
No.
I can't find a way to spare you, baby. No wall like the wall of hard scientific fact. KS, wham, bang your head on that.
Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
And that's what I like to hear, a mature reaction. Let's go see if the cats come home. Lewis,
When did you find this?
I couldn't tell you.
Why?
I was scared, Lou,
Of what?
that you'll leave me.
Oh?
Bad timing, funeral and all, but I figured as long as we're on the subject of death.
I have to go bury my grandma.
Lou, then you'll come home?
Then I'll come home.
Scene 5. Later on, split scene, Joe and Harper at home. Lewis at the cemetery with Rabbi Isidore Chemowitz and the little coffin. And this time, continuing the gender-busting theory, our other esteemed rabbi will read the part of Rabbi Chemowitz.
Washington?
An incredible honor, buddy. And
I have to think.
of course,
Say no.
you said you were going to think about it.
I don't want to move to Washington.
I do.
It's a giant cemetery, huge white graves and mausoleums everywhere.
We could live in Maryland or Georgetown.
We're happy here.
Well, that's not really true, buddy.
Well, happy enough. Pretend happy. That's better than nothing.
It's time to make some changes, Harper.
No changes. Why?
I've been a chief clerk for 4 years. I make $29,000 a year. That's ridiculous. I graduated 4th in my class and I make less than anyone I know. And I'm tired of being a clerk. I want to go where something good is happening.
Nothing good happens in Washington. We'll forget church teachings and buy furniture at Conrad's and become yuppies. I have too much to do here.
Like what?
I do have things.
What things?
I have to finish painting the bedroom.
You've been painting in there for over a year.
I know, it just isn't done because I never get time to finish it.
Oh, that doesn't make sense. You have all the time in the world. You could finish it when I'm at work.
I'm afraid to go in there alone.
Afraid of what?
I heard someone in there. Metal scraping on the wall. A man with a knife, maybe.
There's no one in the bedroom, Harper.
Not now.
Not this morning either.
How do you know? You were at work this morning. There's something creepy about this place. Remember Rosemary's Baby?
Mary's Baby?
Our apartment looks like that one. Wasn't that apartment in Brooklyn?
No, it was.
Well, it looked like this. It did.
Then let's move.
Georgetown's worst. The Exorcist was in Georgetown.
The devil. Everywhere you turn. Huh, buddy?
Yeah, everywhere.
How many pills today, buddy?
None. 1. 3. Only 3.
Why are there just 2 little wooden pegs holding the lid down?
She can get out easier if she wants to.
I hope she stays put. I pretended for years that she was already dead. When they called me to say she had died, it was a surprise. I abandoned her.
Scharfer für den Son von a Schlang, zum dankbar Kind.
I don't speak Yiddish.
Sharper than the serpent's tooth is the ingratitude of children. Shakespeare, King Lear.
Rabbi, what does the Holy Writ say about someone who abandons someone he loves at a time of great need?
Why would a person do such a thing?
Because he has to. Maybe because this person's sense of the world, that it will change for the better with struggle. Maybe a person who has this neo-Hegelian positive sense of constant historical progress toward happiness or perfection, or something who feels very powerful because he feels connected to these forces, moving uphill all the time. Maybe that person can't incorporate sickness into his sense of how things are supposed to go. Maybe vomit and sores and disease really frighten him. Maybe he isn't so good with death.
The Holy Scriptures have nothing to say about such a person.
Rabbi, I'm afraid of the crimes I may commit.
Please, mister. I'm a sick old rabbi facing a long drive home to the Bronx. You want to confess, better you should find a priest.
But I'm not a Catholic. I'm a Jew.
Worse luck for you, Bubala. Catholics believe in forgiveness.
You just make sure those pegs are in good and tight.
Don't worry, mister. The life she had, she'll stay put. She's better off.
I know this is scary for you, but try to understand what it means to me. Will you try?
Yes.
Good. Really try. I think things are starting to change in the world.
But I don't want...
Wait. For the good. Change for the good. America has rediscovered itself, its sacred position among nations. And people aren't ashamed of that like they used to be. This is a great thing. The truth restored, law restored. That's what President Reagan's done, Harper. He says truth exists and can be spoken proudly. And the country responds to him. We become better, more good. I need to be part of that. I need something big to lift me up. I mean, 6 years ago, the world seemed in decline, horrible. hopeless, full of unsolvable problems and crime and confusion and hunger and
But it still seems that way, more now than before. They say the ozone layer is.
Harper.
And today, out the window on Atlantic Avenue, there was a schizophrenic traffic cop who was making these.
Stop it! I'm trying to make a point.
So am I.
You aren't even making sense.
My point is, the world seems just as.
It only seems that way to you because you never go out in the world, Harper, and you have emotional problems.
I do so get out in the world.
You don't. You stay in all day fretting about imaginary.
I get out. I do. You don't know what I do.
You don't stay in all day.
No.
Well, yes, you do.
That's what you think.
Where do you go?
Where do you go when you walk? And I do not have emotional problems.
Sorry.
And if I do have emotional problems, it's from living with you, or.
I'm sorry, buddy. I didn't mean to.
Or if you do think I do, then you should never have married me. You have all these secrets and lies.
Be married to you, Harper.
You shouldn't. You never should. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy.
Buddy kiss.
I heard on the radio how to give a blowjob.
What?
You want to try?
You really shouldn't listen to stuff like that.
Mormons can give blowjobs.
Harper.
Joe. It was a little Jewish lady with a German accent. This is a good time for me to make a baby. Then they went on to a program about holes in the ozone layer over Antarctica. Skin burns, birds go blind, icebergs melt. The world's coming to an end.
Scene 6, first week of November. We are in the men's room of the office of the Brooklyn Federal Court of Appeals. Lewis is crying over the sink as Joe enters.
Oh, morning.
Good morning, counselor.
Sorry, I don't know your name.
Don't bother. Word processor, the lowest of the low.
Joe Pitt. I'm with Justice Wilson.
Oh, I know that, Counselor. Pitt, Chief Clerk.
Are you okay?
Oh, yeah, thanks. What a nice man.
Not so nice.
What?
Not so nice. Nothing. You sure you're all right?
Life sucks shit. Life just sucks shit.
What's wrong?
Run in my nylons.
Sorry?
Forget it. Look, thanks for asking.
Well,
I mean, it really is nice of you. Sorry, sick friend.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's sweet. 3 of your colleagues have preceded you to this baleful sight, and you're the first one to ask. The others just opened the door, saw me, and fled. I hope they had to pee real bad.
I just didn't want to intrude.
Ha! Reaganite, heartless, macho, asshole lawyers.
Oh, that's unfair.
What is heartless, macho, Reaganite, lawyer?
I voted for Reagan
You did?
twice.
Twice? Well, oh boy, a gay Republican.
Excuse me?
Nothing.
I'm not. Forget it.
Republican, not Republican, or
What?
what?
Not gay. I'm not gay.
Oh, sorry.
Yes?
Well, sometimes You can tell from the way a person sounds that, you sound like a
No, I don't. Like what?
Republican.
Do I sound like a...
What? Like a Republican? Or do I
Do you what?
sounds like a...
Like I'm confused.
Yes, my name is Louis, but all my friends call me Louise. I work in word processing. Thanks for the toilet paper.
Louis offers Joe his hand. Joe reaches, Louis faints and pecks Joe on the cheek and then exits. Scene 7, a week later. This is a mutual dream scene. Pryor is at a fantastic makeup table, having a dream, applying the face. Harper is having a pill-induced hallucination. She has these from time to time. For some reason, Pryor has appeared in this one, or Harper has appeared in Pryor's dream. It is bewildering and unexplained. Mute, there.
I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille. One wants to move through life with elegance and grace, blossoming infrequently, but with exquisite taste and perfect timing, like a rare bloom, a zebra orchid. One wants, but one so seldom gets what one wants, does one? No, one does not. One gets fucked over. One dies at 30, robbed of decades of majesty. Fuck this shit. Fuck this shit. I look like a corpse. A corpsette. Oh, my queen. You know you've hit rock bottom when even drag is a drag.
Who are you?
Who are you?
What are you doing in my hallucination?
I'm not in your hallucination. You're in my dream.
You're wearing makeup.
So are you.
But you're a man.
Oh, the hands and feet give it away.
There must be some mistake here. I don't recognize you. You're not... Are you some sort of imaginary friend?
No. Aren't you too old to have imaginary friends?
I have emotional problems. I took too many pills. Why are you wearing makeup?
I was in the process of applying the face, trying to make myself feel better. I swiped the new fall colors at the Clinique counter at Macy's.
You stole these?
I was out of cash. It was an emotional emergency.
Joe will be so angry. I promised him no more pills.
These pills you keep alluding to?
Valium. I take Valium. Lots of Valium.
And you're dancing as fast as you can.
I'm not addicted. I don't believe in addiction. And I never drink. And I never take drugs.
Well, smell you, Nancy Drew.
Except Valium.
Except Valium, in wee fistfuls.
It's terrible. Mormons are not supposed to be addicted to anything. I'm a Mormon.
I'm a homosexual.
Oh. In my church, we don't believe in homosexuals.
In my church, we don't believe in Mormons.
What church do... Oh, I get it. I don't understand this. If I didn't ever see you before, and I don't think I did, then I don't think you should be here in this hallucination, because in my experience, the mind, which is where hallucinations come from, shouldn't be able to make up anything that wasn't there to start with, that didn't enter it from experience from the real world. Imagination can't create anything new, can it? It only recycles bits and pieces from the world and reassembles them into visions. Am I making sense right now?
Given the circumstances, yes.
So when we think we've escaped the unbearable ordinariness and, well, untruthfulness of our lives, it's really only the same old ordinariness and falseness rearranged into the appearance of novelty and truth. Nothing unknown is knowable. Don't you think it's depressing?
The limits of the imagination.
Yes.
It's something you learn after your second theme party. It's all been done before.
The world, finite, terribly, terribly. Well, this is the most depressing hallucination I've ever had.
Apologies, I do try to be amusing.
Oh, well, don't apologize. I can't expect someone who's really sick to entertain me.
How on earth did you know that?
Oh, that happens. This is the very threshold of revelation sometimes. You can see things. How sick you are. Do you see anything about me?
Yes.
What?
You are amazingly unhappy.
Oh, big deal. You meet a Valium addict and you figure out she's unhappy. That doesn't count. Of course, something else, something surprising.
Something surprising.
Yes.
Your husband's a homo.
Oh, ridiculous. Really?
Threshold of revelation.
Well, I don't like your revelations. I don't think you intuit well at all. Joe's a very normal man. Oh God. Oh God. Do homos take like lots of long walks?
Yes, we do. In stretch pants with lavender coifs. I just looked at you and there was
a sort of blue streak of recognition.
Yes.
Like you knew me incredibly well.
Yes.
Yes. I have to go now, get back. Something just fell apart. Oh God, I feel so sad.
I'm sorry. I usually say fuck the truth, but mostly the truth fucks you.
I see something else about you.
Oh?
Deep inside you, there's a part of you, the most inner part, entirely free of disease. I can see that.
That isn't true.
Threshold of revelation.
Home. She vanishes.
People come and go so quickly here. I don't think there's any part of me that's uninfected. My heart is pumping polluted blood. I feel dirty.
He begins to wipe makeup off with his hands, smearing it around. A large gray feather falls from up above. Pryor stops smearing the makeup and looks up at the feather. It falls as he goes to it and picks it up. A voice is heard.
Look up.
Hello?
Look up.
Who is that?
Prepare the way.
I don't see any.
There is a dramatic change in lighting from above.
Look up. Look up. Prepare the way. The infinite descent, a breath in air floating down, glory to.
Hello? Is that it? Hello? What the fuck? Poor me. Poor me. Why me? Why poor me? Oh, I don't feel good right now. I really don't.
Thank you, readers. So with our limited time left, and then we can continue this next week. And I'm going to just start out with one question for people. And it has to do with the beginning of the play and with Rabbi Chimowitz and some of the things that he says during the during that teshbit. And the first question is, why does he say that this was the last great trip? So why does the play start with saying that this was the last voyage and that essentially there are no other great voyages? And what makes Sarah Irenson so special as a result of that? And what is that saying or trying to inform us about as Jews for the remainder of the characters that we meet in these first 7 scenes? Anybody want to give that a crack, as it were? Anybody want to say anything at all? If so, please stick up your hand for either what you heard in the rabbi's speech and the significance of saying that hers was the last journey that we would make. Do I have any takers? Either of the rabbis want to weigh in? Rabbi Julie, thank you. Or Rabbi Chimowitz, you read the part.
Yeah. Well, interesting coincidence. It was really moving to read this because yesterday was the 100th anniversary of my grandmother arriving on the boat from Europe. And so it was just like amazing for me to read this part. Thank you for that. Because I've been thinking a lot about her this week with my family. And I just think about that, you know, so I don't know, just so personally, like, I don't know like the great answer to this question, but I'm just imagining like the Jews, like if she hadn't have made that trip, she came from Poland, she likely would have perished in World War II. And there were a limited number of trips that came over from Europe. And then it was, most of the Jews died there. So that's one idea that I have. I also just think about this sort of dream of America and like her dream of America. I'm really, again, in my personal story here, but just thinking about it just so that there was like Europe. I mean, in the monologue there, it was sort of talking about that we're holding on to the homeland and America is nothing, but I don't know. I mean, but a lot of Europe was forgotten. A lot of the Judaism was forgotten, and we became in my family, very secular, and it became a whole new reality for many Jews, for all the Jews, of course. And then my family becoming just so very secular, and trying to become American. It was I don't know. Those are just some of my thoughts.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Rabbi John.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, there's no more, I almost felt in it like there's no more heroic outer journey, that it's a fascinating idea. You know, we talk a lot these days about generational trauma and our complex inheritance in that way. And I feel like the play sort of ahead of its time, like with so much, is talking about that we make like that inner journey. We internalize that outer journey that our ancestors made, and then it's almost like a entree into the play. So what does it look like to internalize that outer journey? Well, and then it, you know, different ways of doing that, perhaps.
Anybody else? Martin?
This was the land where the streets were paved with gold, and what many immigrants believed. And this was it. This was the land of milk and honey and of riches for everyone.
Anybody else? Judith?
And a question about, can you, in the rabbi sense, can you ever really travel from your origins? Does your identity, can you ever really assimilate? And one big question maybe to bracket as we keep reading this play is, how much of this opening is really about Judaism itself, and how much is it a figure for larger identities of the quote other or gay or queer identity? Because there's not actually an awful lot about Jewish culture per se, but there's an awful lot about that tension between keeping a certain identity which resides in a separate, smaller, closed circle, or assimilating into a broader world. And I'm just curious whether, how much of this is going to be about Jewishness, or how much of this is going to be about a broader kind of assimilation.
Judith, I'm going to answer you that because just a little bit, because we only got through scene 7. And I think that you will see, as will everybody else as we go through the play, where Jewish cultural issues and Jewish religious issues sort of come up again throughout the play. Okay. Anybody else that I may have overlooked who want to say something? Dana.
Yeah, I'm not sure this is actually going to answer your question. I just, I think it's an interesting literary device that's used here. At the very beginning, there's this very broad metaphorical term of taking the last voyage. And then the character of Judith's wife, whose character name I can't remember, Harper, is very fixated on literally taking a journey, but it's very disconnected from reality. And in some senses, it's also metaphorical. We all take this journey of life, but she's met with a travel agent, and she wants to take this literal journey. And I just thought that was just a brilliant technique. And I suspect I have never heard the play before, but I suspect it might be a theme that's introduced at the beginning.
Yeah. Rabbi, does anybody else want to say something who has not yet said something? Elisa.
Oh, it's Shelley. I just noticed my name. My wife's name is on there. Sorry about that.
Sorry, Shelley. I see that now.
Yeah. I think the journey for Lewis is a different journey. He takes a different journey. The great journey that our ancestors took is over. It's done with. And the American journey is a very different one. And then as a gay man, he has an additional, being Jewish isn't his own identity. So he has a different journey to take. So that's my thought about it.
Anybody else who hasn't spoken yet? I'm not seeing any other hands. Rabbi Julie, did you want to say something else?
Yeah, 2 thoughts. I mean, sometimes like when we talk about the last great journey, aren't we often are talking about dying. Like it's the last journey of our life is the journey through death. And I have read this play before, so I won't say more, but we already know, I mean, Prior is this main character and who is facing his AIDS, and that he's been talking about dying. So that was one piece of that was coming up for me. And the other thing about this sort of lingering, the stuff that we're holding on to, stuff where we can never escape where we came from, or we should hold on to where we came from. I was thinking about trauma a lot, and just the trauma of our ancestors who coming from Europe, and and that not being able to fully escape that in their lives here, even as much as they may have tried, or assimilation was often a response to that trauma, but it just walked with them always. So.
Anybody else want to say anything before I close up on tying some of these things together? Steve Portnoy.
I do. The journey that I see that they're talking about is the journey of the immigrants was really, when the rabbi says that, your clay is the clay of some Litvak shtetl because she carried the old world on her back, the immigrants brought the old world to a new world and laid a foundation for their descendants then to be able to enjoy a life in America. And I think the characters in these plays are going through a journey like that as well. And especially at the time when AIDS really made homosexuality very visible. And the gay community really had to go through a transition, really had to make a journey to, of course, gay people had existed long before them this time, but it really started a transition to not just like be mainstream, but really incorporated into everything about society. Especially with AIDS, didn't just keep itself in the gay community. It expanded, and it had to be reckoned with. And the characters in this play kind of go through a process of shifting how the gay community was perceived and their role in it. And I think that that's a journey that carried the old world on their backs, the old world of what being gay used to be before AIDS into what being gay is in sort of a post and current AIDS world.
Thanks. Okay, anybody else? A couple of things. Sarah Ironson is the first angel in America. The rabbi has turned her into an angel. And she is the first person that we see in the play. And even though she's in the coffin, she is coming to America and she's an angel in America. And one of the things we know about her, which the rabbi describes, is that she's silent and that she didn't talk very much. And there is a great deal of Hasidic literature and a great deal of Talmudic literature that gives extra credit, as much as we are taught to argue and to question and to have debates and to rail against our God, that when people are in the, sorry, you guys, let me see. There we go. That when people are approaching the judgment day and that they are there at the throne of the angel of God and the devils and the angels are debating about where they're going to wind up and what's going to happen with them, is that the people who are silent during that period of time are given extra credit, and that their view of what is going to happen and where they will be in Haba Olam, in the world to come, is enhanced at the moment that they are meeting their maker. And that people who are silent leading up to that there is extra merit for that. And I think to a large degree, and next week we're going to talk about the interchange between Lewis and the rabbi, but I think that to a large degree here is that what is being taught here or tried to being taught is that just as Pryor's dying and just as Pryor, whatever is happening with Pryor, takes a very long time, be that long time truly be measured in days or weeks or months, that so it took a long time for Sarah Ironson, which is why she wasn't speaking towards the end. And representing the old world is silence. Representing the new world, the world that we have, the world that is coming to us, is the voice and is of people speaking and coming out. Because as we will see through the play, and the historical accuracy of this is coming out with AIDS was way worse than just coming out, because it meant that you were coming out often to the people you were closest to as a sick person or as a diseased person. And I think that right away, Tony Kushner is trying to acknowledge that. Also, in terms of giving all of his characters the movement that they need. And I think that it may have been Dana who said that it's a wonderful literary framing advice for the fact that all of the characters that we meet, and you could say, yeah, this is true of all literature, because it is, but all of the characters that we meet are on a journey. And the journey that they are on is either towards death or it's towards life affirming. And sometimes that flips during the play, but setting this up here in the beginning is the recognition that Sarah Ironson is that first angel in America, coming to America and seeing what it is. And then what the voice gives us at the end of where we ended here is another type of angel coming to America and what that angel is. And the questions that I think that are presented are, how do we react to that as we go through the play? Now we are at 8:34, which is 4 minutes beyond, but Judith, you have your hand up. So I think you probably really want to say something. So you may get the last word here, and then the other questions from this time will be what we start with next time, so that when we start reading, we can make sure that we've covered, because there's a couple of other themes that I want to make sure that we get for the rest of the play. Judith.
Just one layer, because it's nothing if not complicating. I think there's also going to be a question of who gets to speak and who gets spoken. And we start with the voice of a woman who he says he doesn't know, but he describes, who is silenced. There'll be a lot of silenced women and others. So I think that comes in to kind of complicate that question of whose voice is able to speak and whose gets spoken, described by, you know, a male rabbi. Of course, played by a woman, so one more complication.
Great. Excellent. Okay, now for next time, speaking of speaking, okay, if there's anybody who wants to read a part next time who did not get to read tonight, please let me know. This is going to be for the next 4 Thursdays, so you can read at any point in time. And if you want to read again, and or read the same part, or you want to try to do something different, please let me know. Because a play, just like we should all talk about the play, I think anybody who wants to get to read should absolutely give it a go. I want to thank all of my readers. I want to thank my nephew Andrew. I want to thank everybody who was here to participate. And I look forward to seeing you all again on Thursday, 7 o'clock, between 7 and 8:30, because isn't it nice to actually do something at night with other people that feels a little bit more like the theater and community than just simply watching that next movie on Netflix that's really, really good, but you're still just watching a screen. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you so much. This was great.